What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good afternoon, gang. Welcome to a Thursday show, a little bit late in the afternoon, but for a really good reason. We were waiting on our pal, Mr. Gundacker, who hopefully you can see in this other video window. Somebody in the chat, please acknowledge that you can see and hear Gun. What's going on, Gun? How are you, buddy?
Yeah, it's been dude, we've been playing phone tag or text tag for a long time. I knew that I used to do what you do, and that's every sport. And that was like it's so much fun. Like, we're blessed to like have sports as a job, but man, I couldn't have 10 minutes to myself. So I knew, I was like, you might not get me and Terry until basketball dies or something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of here we are.
Now that we're ground down to like showdown, single game basketball, single game NHL, it's a lot more manageable. It's really like football and basketball and baseball I can handle at the same time, like when those intersect in like August, September, like those kind of time frames. But once NBA gets into the picture and it's like down to the second before lock and everything that you got to be on top, it's just so difficult to manage. So yeah, it was definitely took a minute to get worked out. It took me forever to actually just respond to your DM and in Discord, other than just telling you when you came into the chat via show that I would that we would set something up. But yeah, I'm glad to have you here finally, and hopefully we can do some more of these as the season goes on. How's your season going? Have you what have you thought about the beginning of the baseball season? What's going on?
Yeah, it's been good. I've been trying to learn more of the prop side of what we do. But in Texas, I don't have like legalized sports betting, so I've been having to get access or action on like Prize Picks, and that is a grind, man. Baseball's already kind of like the toughest day to day, but Prize Picks kind of forces you to parlay everything, so that's been a grind. But on the right slates, like tonight, I still like to go crazy with a CSV on DraftKings and FanDuel. So tonight I get to actually babysit a portfolio of lineups, which is really where I'm the best at.
I know that feeling well. Yeah, I keep meaning to do more focus on props and everything, and maybe like second half of baseball season, I'll start throwing up some like strikeout props and things like that I like, because those are they're great plays, and especially like sites like Prize Picks, like you said. So as we go through things, shout out anything like that you like, because that's not something I really hit on too much, but I'm sure the guys out there will be into those picks and those calls. So let's definitely talk those through.
Yeah,
and we're talking. Okay.
No, I was like, and a lot of what we already do, like our projections that like you and me, we both have a home run model and stuff like that. I came up with a formula to like convert my number. I know yours was 10, mine was like 4, to convert that number into a probability. Which then into a fair odds, like I call it the spreadsheet odds, and then compare it to Vegas. And man, that was pretty eye-opening to see what I thought was a fair number versus what people are paying. Because every day people are sending me like screenshots of them parlaying Schwarber, Ohtani, Judge, and it's like plus 150 to 200 for each. And the spreadsheet's like, yeah, a Judge homer should be like 350, 400. And so like people are bragging about paying $10 for a gallon of milk, man. I'm like, I don't know.
That's it. Some of those, if you actually think about what they're offering you there, it's like, all right, yeah, that is the best that you can get, but like it is way off what the actual probability ought to be. That's an interesting analysis. I'd be interested in seeing that. Is that something you're doing day to day at your site, or is it something more that like is for you and then you talk about it on shows?
No, I put it in. I put it in my actual bomb detector. So we have a column for the bomb rating, and then equivalent of probability, and then probability versus odds, which I think that's the main difference between a casual player and a good bettor, is understanding what odds even mean. And basically I think of it as a probability. So like for instance, tonight I've got Schwarber 17% probability. The fair odds for the spreadsheet says 492, 500, and FanDuel is going to charge you 285. So that's like a minus 200 tax that you're getting tariffed on for a Schwarber bomb right now.
And one of the higher end Phillies, definitely the best number, facing Mr. Chris Sale in what looks like a fantastic pitching duel in that one. I can't wait to get into that one. But tell the guys, I'm sure most of the people here so far know you and know you pretty well, but tell everybody where to find you. I put a link in the description for Gun's site and his Twitter link down there in the description, but tell the guys just, what you're offering and what the site is and everything for the people that don't know.
Yeah, so like I said, I used to do what Terry does, and that's grind all sports by myself in my corner of the internet. And we have a really great community. A lot of our community is the same. There's a lot of overlap. And a couple years ago, a lot of other stuff in life started taking off, and I started getting back into wrestling, and just my schedule went crazy. So the last 2 years, I've just been kind of chilling. But I love baseball. Baseball is my freaking passion in life. So I was like, man, I want to come back and grind a season of baseball. So I missed this community, missed the space quite a bit. So I came back and decided to commit to a full MLB season of daily analysis and daily grind. We call it the MLB grind. And that's what I'm doing. So I'll leave the do everything to Terry, and I'll just be over here watching baseball. And if I can, create a revenue stream out of it, cool. And that's kind of what we've done. A nice little small niche community. And usually every day I'm on, I would say about 5 days a week. You could probably catch me on YouTube if weather permits lately. And usually at the end of my stream, I bleed into the beginning of yours, and I always spam your link and tell them to come check it out.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I always see a little uptick midway through of my marathon shows, and I'm like, Gun must have just ended his, and I'm always trying to bounce off of yours and give you when I see you start at 2, I'm like, all right, let me give them I'll get it on to 3:30, 3:15, give it some time in there. Yeah, hopefully not too much overlap, but give people time to catch both for sure. But yeah, glad we finally got on together. It looks like we've got some people piling into the room, 23, 25 people bouncing around. Lone Wolf's in the chat. We've got Larry C's out there, Kenneth Woodhouse, Cujo. We've got that's you up there. Andy's here. Good to see everybody out there. Hope everybody's having a good week, good Thursday. Hopefully, nice little surprise here. We'll do these again in the future, I'm sure, and hopefully give you guys a little bit more of a heads up. But we figured today would be good to just jump on because we've only really got 4 games to go through. And starting up at 4, whatever we did was probably not 4:30 was maybe not the best way to handle that because we'll probably still go to 6:30 for a 6:45 start. But what do you say we dive into this one a little bit and we'll talk some game environments here off the top. So as Lone Wolf points out, as we do that, like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe over on Gundacker's channel. Gun, what's your website again? MLBgrind.com. MLBgrind.com. So check that out. Follow at Gundacker. Follow the at rotoscouts Twitter handle. Check out rotoscouts.com as well. All my projections, as Gun said, covering all the major sports as best we possibly can for every single main slate that's out there under $1 a day for access to all of it. So, Gun, as mentioned, top of the board here, we've got the Braves and the Phillies. Monster pitching duel between Zach Wheeler and Chris Sale. I love this spot on basically all sides. It's difficult to suppress Ronald Acuna and the top end Braves in the model. It's difficult to suppress guys like Schwarber, who you were just talking about, the home run upside. 7.5 run total, both teams under 4. Do you have a lean in that one? Are you picking any one of those 4 corners much more strongly? And we'll get into the player by player and game by game, but any lean on one of those 4 sides?
I really don't. I think it's all I would say I probably appreciate maybe the Phillies offense a little bit more than Braves offense, but that's not saying much. But the pitching wise is maybe I lean Wheeler, but it's so neck and neck all 4 sides. The nuance is that this is the second game of a doubleheader. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a curveball absence or appearance that would shift the balance a little bit, but for the most part, this is as tight as this is a NL East powerhouse matchup that we might see really mean something in October or September.
For sure. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. I could see it breaking down any which way. It seems less than likely that either team is going to put 8 runs and bend a DFS slate on the starter, but you put a handful of runs at the prices that those guys come in, and it can definitely ruin their day up top while not necessarily being a monster DFS day outside of the, you catch a Marcell Ozuna grand slam or something like that. maybe that gets you there. But a difficult game to stack. We do have a known unknown in that game too with Bryce Harper's status. Harper got plunked by Spencer Strider the other day on the elbow, on his surgically repaired elbow. Didn't play in the opener. So it'll be interesting to see if he's out there for game 2. And like you said, what those second game of a doubleheader lineups look like. Oakland at Toronto. We've got Jacob Lopez on the bump I said Oakland. I keep doing that because it's in my spreadsheet with Oak for the abbreviation because I cannot find where I need to make that change. The Athletics, the generalized Athletics at the Blue Jays. It's Jacob Lopez on the hill for the Athletics, and it's Jose Barrios on the mound for the Blue Jays. The Vegas total pretty strongly favors the Blue Jays side of this one. I'm not as big a fan of that spot as maybe that total would suggest. The model's not really coming up as aggressive Blue Jays for me, but a 4.79 total on this board is kind of undeniable. It's more than a half a run above several of the other ones. I feel like the Athletics are a little bit underappreciated at 3.81 implied runs going up against Barrios, an entirely gettable pitcher. Am I wrong?
No. One of the things I've noticed in my exploring of the betting streets is bettors love them some Jose Barrios, and every week I don't get it.
I feel like we've been talking about for years now how overrated Jose Barrios is, or how he's just like a super average pitcher that everybody for some reason thinks is like 2 notches above what he actually is.
Every 5 days he's got a crazy outline, a crazy like today he's implied for 18 outs, which is 6 innings, basically giving him a quality start, which is definitely possible. We're talking 5.1 expected ERA at a 12% barrel rate against the Athletics team that has shown us this year they're not that bad. Yeah, they got a couple unknowns in the bottom of that lineup with Avens and Logan Davidson, but man, Butler, Wilson, Rooker, Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, and even our old pal Miggy Andahar. Those are big league bets. So if you're gonna put that and put that up against Jose Barrios, yeah, man, that's way better than a chip in a chair for 3.8.
Yeah, the A's came up really strong collectively in the model. They're actually sitting at the top of the stack rankings right now, and one of the top couple home run teams as well, with all that power that they show up at the top. Couple big lefties in there. Kurtz to the IL kind of hurts a little bit of the back end, the bottom of the lineup. Like you mentioned, it's a little bit thinner down there, but I like them as a sneaky team. Michael Nax in the chat calling out really liking the A's today as well. We've got D Johnson's down in there in the chat. Michael Nax saying Wilson's a straight up stud. Yeah, kid's been killing it, competing for a batting title in the AL. Unfortunately for him, he's got a guy named Mr. Aaron Judge that's mashing his way to a 390 something right now, but we'll see how that evens out. What do you think on the Blue Jays side? To me, that's kind of a top heavy lineup. A couple George Springer kind of getting back to normal this year. Dalton Varsho out of the gate with a real outburst of power, but we know what that's going to normalize to. And then slow starting Vladdy, medium strength Bo Bichette, and a really thin back end. I don't love that team for DFS as far as stacks go. 4.79 implied total, though, like I said, it is appealing on the Vegas board, and they're going up against a fairly high strikeout minor league pitcher, essentially, with a lot of walk issues through the minor leagues. He had a good outing against the Phillies that you can't take off the board over 7 innings. He struck out 8, walked 1, gave up a homer, but only 3 hits, faced 26 Phillies on the 23rd. So, I mean, there is maybe some talent there. I really question the Blue Jays as far as being like a top end stack today, but they land kind of mid board for me. Where are they for you?
Yeah. So with athletics games, sometimes they become the tale of 2 halves. And this is something maybe we could bring back to the Braves game, because Shawver did get injured and they went to heavy on the bullpen. Yeah. But the athletics bullpen has been really bad. Mason Miller is about the only bright spot, and even him, he's had a couple of implosions. So this could be one of those athletics win the first 5, and then when they hand the ball off, the second half Blue Jays can put up some runs. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of stuff that I love to attack in Lopez. I mean, his whip is pretty high. Does walk some hitters in the Blue Jays, not a big strikeout team, and we got a couple of guys like Vladdy, Santander, George Springer that will draw their walks. But overall, this offense not super stacked in the WRC plus against righties since the beginning of last year. I got just Vladdy with a number worth mentioning and a couple of ISOs. We know that there's some pop in these bats here. But I guess I would say if Lopez's greatest strength is his strikeout rate, and that's kind of like the greatest strength of the Blue Jays, is their lack of strikeouts,
Yeah.
maybe we get a funky result off of that. But Lopez's stuff so far doesn't look that bad. Now, there's only 14 innings. If you look back into a small sample, 2 years prior, he's definitely not as shiny. So maybe there's an element of unknown. But overall, I'm with you. The Blue Jays have been one of those teams for me this year. Them and like the Orioles, where came into the season expecting, a couple of spots to make money off of them, and they just keep letting me down.
Yeah, and it's that top heavy lineup. From time to time you could get things out of some of the bottom guys, but there's nothing really high impact down at the bottom of the lineup. They lack that like seventh hitting like slugger bat. They're really, really thin down there. So it'll be interesting to watch them, throughout the season, because it is a big market team that should be within range of contention, let's say. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that lineup. But for today, they're kind of mid-board despite that high total for me. Let's move on to a matchup between a couple young pitchers who are pretty gettable, facing lineups that are getting pretty decent totals in Houston. 8.5 run total, 4.23 on the Rays side of that one, and 4.36 on the Astros. Has me leaning a little bit bats here. I don't really have an issue targeting Shane Baz, and same thing with Ryan Gusto, despite some positive attributes from both pitchers. You have a lean in any angle on this one?
Yeah, so I know there's a couple things that me and you differ on as far as our day-to-day process, and I think I appreciate splits a little bit more than you. And with the Astros, they've been one of those teams that are very righty heavy. Like they remind me of an old Yankees team from a couple years ago, where there are so many righties without Yordan Alvarez. And Shane Baz is kind of reverse splits, meaning he has a better xFIP, better K percentage against lefties, and then that really declines so far against righties this season. A 4.76 xFIP to righties, a 17% carry to righties, and almost a 2 home run per 9 to righties with an 11% walk rate. What I'm saying is, despite his 54% ground ball rate, righties can get him. And this is a lot of righties, and this is similar to what we saw the Astros, was it 2 games ago, where Altuve hit 2 bombs? Yep. There's a couple of guys in here that could sneakily take advantage of that. So I do kind of like lean them, but the Astros have been consistently inconsistent as well. And there is no Christian Walker in this lineup. So this is an Astros team with no Alvarez, no Walker. So you're basically leaning on the corpse of Altuve, who at least has a little life as of the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple blips on the heart monitor lately, at least.
Yeah.
Nice to see. He's on my dynasty team this year. So it's, we need Jose to deliver a little bit. But yeah, as you mentioned, Victor Caratini cleaning up, maybe a somewhat interesting bat there that might go a bit underappreciated, but it's not the optimal version of that Astros lineup. But still, no. I do think, gettable enough. And for all those things in the splits, like you said, the reverse splits with Shane Baz, all the more reason to maybe consider some of at least the top end Astros. And it's not really the deepest version of their lineup either. There's Dezenzo Dubon down the bottom, but some usable parts for sure in underperforming Jainer Diaz, maybe some Cam Smith down there. So one of the deeper lineups maybe of the day. On the Rays side, top heavy Rays lineup as well, but another team with some usable parts depending on what you're looking for positionally, price wise. What do you think of attacking Ryan Gusto just in general?
Yeah, I like the lefty power quite a bit. The Rays, usually a platoon heavy team, so you never really get to lean on one guy a lot, but Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau, and Jonathan Aranda. Aranda and Lau are my 2 favorite bats to click here against Gusto, especially this year. Gusto he hasn't allowed a homer to righty yet, but has been serving them up to lefties and also walking them at a high clip. I mean, if you're going to let he's walking lefties at 13%. If you walk Chandler Simpson, you got to have a problem. So
that's 2 stolen bases, right? He's on third base immediately.
Yeah, so I think of all the teams we talked about so far, I think the Rays, I don't have a confirmed lineup, but if you threw me a Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau, Aranda, Simpson 4-stack off the rip, and you sprinkle it in there with ground into double play God Junior Caminero or Yandy Diaz, I could be involved in some Rays stack interest.
I like both those bats, and then we'll get into the full lineup in just a sec. But just somebody even potentially sneaky all the way down lineup like Matt Face is on this team, so maybe a little bit of sneakiness there with one good batted ball event. Finishing the 4-gamer out here, though, on the Vegas board, we've got the Nationals at the Mariners at the end of the night. Nats got to George Kirby the other day. He hasn't really looked completely on form yet, but I'm still a big buyer on him. Today they get Emerson Hancock, who looks like a better target, but they're coming in at just a 3.71 implied total. I like the top end of the Nats with CJ Abrams, with James Wood. I actually have James Wood as the home run pick of the day, despite this ballpark kind of working against power overall, despite the low total. Just like that matchup, I don't mind targeting Hancock at all with some pretty good bats. And then to me, another premium pitcher on this slate, and he's proving it basically every time out. Mackenzie Gore on the hill for the Nats, going up against what is a targetable Seattle team for strikeouts, but also one with some power, with some run scoring ability. What are we thinking in that one with both those teams pretty significantly under 4 runs on the Vegas board?
Yeah, I like the Nats. I was looking at I fell in a rabbit hole earlier this morning of they were talking about National League, MVP race, and they were talking about Pete Crow Armstrong, and then somebody replied with like a comp between Armstrong and James Wood, and like other than stolen bases, Wood is right there, and I think has a higher WRC plus. So I don't know if the national media is caught up to what James Wood and some of these Nats are doing. That little Juan Soto trade coming back on them.
Seriously, Hassel up now. I mean, they got all those pieces really, really firing. That was as much as I would never have traded Juan Soto, and I would have done everything to keep him. Yankees. I think they got paid the best you possibly could have in that deal, or at least it's looking that way. Yeah, I like that top end.
Turned out really good for them. And then Mackenzie Gore, man, it seems like every couple of years Nationals just have a really, really good pitcher. I didn't see this coming at all the last 2 years. Gaining 12% K rate this year to last year, the swing strike rate gone up. He is essentially facing the tournament matchup where they strike out or hit home runs in the Mariners. They're kind of like a better Angels team right now. So you gotta like both sides of it. Obviously, I lean way more to the Mackenzie Gore side, based on Park and just his consistency. But yeah, there's no way you walk away from this game without a share of both sides.
Yeah, I think so. Across a few lineups, building one lineup. Who's your pitcher off the top of the board? If you're taking one of these top 3 pitchers between on my board, it's going by DK projections, Wheeler, Gore, Sale, but all very much the same. I've got them separated by about 2 points from top to bottom.
Mine, I've got Gore, Wheeler, Sale.
Okay. I have Wheeler and Gore about a point apart with Wheeler up top. Same projection.
I may have to adjust my Sale projection. I think I had him at 17.5. Now I can put him at 18. But yeah, they're all holding hands within a point of DraftKings point. So it's really spin the wheel. And like I said earlier, this being the game 2 of a doubleheader, the Braves went to Scott Blewett, Aaron Bummer, Pierce Johnson, which that hurts, by the way. That's a joke. Daysbel Hernandez and Dylan Dodd. So they had to go to that bullpen pretty quickly. And a couple of these guys only threw for 1 or 2 outs. It's not going to mean a whole lot, but it might be a spot where they try to get Chris Sale to the last at least 6 innings, which might help his out projection a little bit. So I'm probably going to raise his out projection from 17.5 to 18. And some spots, I think Vegas agrees with that.
Yeah, I have him and Wheeler and Gore, all 3. It sounds like probably throwing a few more pitches than maybe you do, and accounting for like a point difference in each one of those guys that we have. Essentially, again, no actual difference, but that probably is the difference there. And just look at the number, Sale's gone 7 in each of his last 2, so I have no real issues believing in 6 plus, especially with those bullpen things. And then Wheeler's always just rubber arm, pitch as deep as he can. 7 in most of his appearances, or at least into the 7th inning in most of his appearances this year and going back in time. So I have no issues believing either one of those guys goes fairly deep into that game, especially with the needy bullpens. Even after short appearances, teams don't love rolling guys out for 2 games on the same day. So I could definitely see that hypothesis coming true on both these guys, especially if they're dueling. Neither one of these guys is going to want to come out if it's a 1-1 game or something like that and they're pitching in the 7th inning. They're going to be demanding to stay in there. So I like the upside for both of those guys. But you had Gore up top between the 3.
So, yeah, but I
like your choice. Gun to your head, one lineup. That's your ace.
I just updated outs. and it switched to Wheeler, Gore, then Sale. So
okay, that's the exact order I have.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, do you have a price wise? We get Wheels at 10.5 on DK, 10.6 on FanDuel. Gork checks in at 93 on DraftKings, and then you get Sale at 88. So there is a really noteworthy price difference there from 88 to 10.5. I agree. I think with what you said before, that Sale probably facing the toughest lineup there with Philly. It's the best 9-man lineup on this board, I think, and the deepest, and they've got a lot of positive attributes. You get a real big price discount. How does that play into things for you on the DK slate, most notably? It's a lot closer on FanDuel.
It's kind of weird. On these short slates, I don't really care about price, but the most expensive bats are the guys against these pitchers. So, like 4 of the top 5 price hitters on DraftKings are either Acuna or Philly, not named James Wood. So I don't know that I'm really need to split hairs, but in a vacuum of value, yeah, that would mean a little bit. But Wheeler's just, his floor is so high. I think with Chris Sale and maybe Mackenzie Gore, you could see an output of they got for 4 innings or whatnot. I think if there is no Harper, it changes. But Wheeler's floor is just so gosh dang high that I would just take that 1K and take it.
Yeah,
but I don't usually sweat it on a small slate.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. In a lot of days, it just doesn't come into the equation because you can get to so many different combinations of bats and everything that you can make essentially anything work. But it is a meaningful enough price to point out. But yeah, I agree with you too that Wheeler essentially is in one of those California houses without a basement, like it's just all ceiling and everything. Where Gore Sale, not a big basement, but maybe the lights are on. Like you could see that there's something down there. Like there's a negative side to that where Wheeler so few and far between for him getting blown up. After those guys, I have a pretty distinct drop down to the Shane Baz, Jose Barrios, Jacob Lopez, Emerson Hancock, and Ryan Gusto area. Any preferences among those guys taking price into consideration? 3 of those guys in the 7s, Hancock and Gusto in the 6s on DK. Or is everybody in that group essentially the same?
I think I'm with you. Barrios is waving right below Sale. Not right below. He's about 3 points below Sale for me. Then Baz and Gusto. I think. This is kind of counterintuitive because I talked about how bad Baz's splits are. Not bad, but how different they are against righties. The Astros lineup does suck. It's Pena and Paredes for me. As far as super talent, and even though the Astros don't strike out a lot, and maybe this is more for FanDuel. Sometimes you get longer outings out of pitchers against teams that don't strike out, and you could steal that quality start on FanDuel. But from a DK side, yeah, I'm gonna be pretty top heavy with that top 3. There's no redeeming qualities for me in Emerson Hancock. It's Herbie Hancock. So it would have to be probably a coin flip between Baz and Barrios.
Uncomfortable coin flip to be making in 2 lineups I don't love targeting. But I'm with you. I don't think that's wrong in any way. It's and everything you pointed out when you were talking about Toronto before against Lopez, even with some strikeout upside, maybe we don't know for sure, but maybe on his side, it's the wrong team to target. I say the same thing about them that you were bringing up. They're just so low strikeout. They make for bad targets a lot of the time. So yeah, I think it's very much between Baz and Barrios, and then across 150, maybe you take a few darts of the bargain bin, but no love for Hancock against a good enough Washington lineup. No real love for Ryan Gusto. Somebody in the chat said Gusto goes busto. Michael Knack threw that out there. I think that's probably right. Larry C's in the chat calling for the Pirates to trade Paul Skeens. Real quick, what do you think of that crazy idea that's bouncing around?
If they think they have no shot at keeping him, and I don't know, usually
we're talking about keeping him 5 years from now, 6 years from now, right? Like that's not an imminent decision.
Yeah, you don't have. Right? You don't have. I understand the theory behind it or the stuff behind it. But if you're looking at the business aspect of it, you want to sell some tickets. You're selling some Paul Skeens tickets, and I still think you could build around them. So it's like, what are you doing with that much time left on the clock? I think most people that are the vehicles for that are fans of other organizations. like
Yeah,
you're not
I think
seeing
so.
any Pirates fan. Yeah, we should trade him now while we can. For what? If you don't trust
Right.
him to build around Paul Skeens, then what are you trusting him to build around what they trade for Paul Skeens?
Right, exactly. You're going to take 3/4 for $1 or not even, and hope that is the way to build. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to be the return that the Nats got for Soto, and part of the value in making that deal would be to trade him now and trade those multiple years of control and everything for the acquiring team. So your opportunity to get paid if you wanted to pursue that would be now. There's no reason you can't build a competitive organization in Pittsburgh. I mean, even the Penguins are not the biggest market, but they've been a successful draw for a long time now around a star with Sidney Crosby there. Same kind of deal. Just build, imagine that you're the Rays and build like them. If the Rays had Paul Skeens, I'm sure they would make it work for the long term. Yeah, anyway.
A couple teams that do that. I see that with the Rockies as well a lot. Rockies have just lost the plot, but
I want to pitch a reality show wherein they make you and me the GM of the Rockies. And just pick these DFS person or baseball, smart baseball Twitter guy, Paul Nesco or Thomas Nesco, whatever the guy's name is, the pitching guy, somebody like that or us or whatever. And just show me that somebody like that can actually go do this. Cause I really think that either of us could run that team almost as competently as they're being run right now.
Yeah, you could moneyball a team with that, like you just played to the stadium, and they're not doing that.
Get me a bunch of ground ball pitchers, keep the ball in the yard as much as possible. Get me some sharp defenders who can also exploit that ballpark, and my defenders can BABIP focused hitters, and then give me some competent power bats who can actually connect with the baseball. That's their big problem this year. A lot of swing and miss.
The only thing I've been saying on my show is that I don't think they're doing it on purpose because they seem really, really incompetent. You just look at that Arenado situation.
Yeah.
In that division, it's almost like futile to put up a fight as far as stacking a team. But because you think the next 5 years, if you're in the AL or the NL West, you're not getting past the Dodgers anytime soon. The D-backs have just been so competitive. The Padres look pretty good for the next couple of years. So it's almost behooves them, like they're doing the right thing on accident to be the worst team ever and maybe stockpile money and picks. But we know that's not a purposely done thing. They just are idiots and
stumbling into maybe some accidental success 10 years from this.
100%. They're like they're Astroing their way, maybe. But I still think it'd be a fun project to moneyball that team with.
I'm so with you. I really do. So let's get into this thing. Looking at the Braves, that 378 implied total with 380 on the Phillies, but I'm still drawn to some of these bats. That heart of power in the Braves lineup. You see, even in my model anyway, Acuna, Olsen, Ozuna, and Riley all suppressed. Those are guys that are typically 10 or thereabouts in my model, 10 plus. Right now, the high end is Acuna at 7. The other guys 7s and mid 6s, and then everybody else in that lineup drops from there. But that core of power, even against a guy like Wheeler, who's spectacular at keeping the ball in the yard, any one of those guys could go deep. And then it becomes a matter of who was on base when that happened, what was going on when that batted ball event happened. If you can capture that, is there enough here to build a stack with? Is it a 5-man stack? Is it a 3-man stack on the Braves? Or you just kind of forgo Braves and mostly focus Wheeler?
No, I'm with you. One thing year over year here, going in his splits, Wheeler has lost 15% of ground ball rate to righties, and has essentially traded that for another 7% in line drive rate. And we've seen his home run per 9 to righties go from 0.45 to 1.55. So despite pristine xFIP, pristine K percentage, and all the other stuff that is really, really good, his weakness, if there is one, is homers to righty or power to righties right now. And that's Acuna. That's Marcell Ozuna. So there's a chip in a chair, a puncher's chance. And even maybe Austin Riley, who kind of fell off, but for a while he was Mr. Barrel right throughout the beginning of the season as well. So those are 3 bats that there's something in this pedigree, this DNA this season for them to dip into if they can avoid the strikeout.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got in the middle of all those guys, you've got a pretty prominent lefty bat that you can throw up against anybody, essentially, in my opinion. And Matt Olson, given all that power, 18.9% barrels, 56.6% hard hits out of him. And just taking that stretch of hitters. And honestly, if Drake Baldwin's hitting too, you can kind of lump him in with that group for a cheap price at catcher. Well, 4,300 getting more expensive at catcher. On FanDuel, he's still cheap at 2,400, which is a misprice for all the barrels and the hard hits he's put up from the left side so far. So there are several really appealing bats, and that's a stretch of 4 straight hitters right there. 100 plus 105 plate appearances for Baldwin is the minimum. All those other guys are, obviously in this territory year over year, but 200 plus plate appearances this year, averaging 54.4% hard hits. Double-digit barrels, significantly double-digit barrels, not to mention Acuna above them. So that's a really big 5-man group of power. It falls off at the end. Can the bottom end give us enough here? Is there anybody appealing DFS-wise to stack in that you would want to get to in a lineup, or are they just like price offsets? And is there enough down there to turn this lineup over a few times and give more opportunities to those guys up top?
On the Brave side, past out Albies, I'm not that confident. So yeah, Doogie, Michael Harris, Nick Allen. I mean, I can't click with confidence. We did just get a Phillies lineup, and
good.
There is no Harper.
No Harper.
Mm-mm.
Oh, looks like we had the Braves too.
Yeah. I had the Braves. You mentioned Baldwin and Olson. And maybe it's because the memory of what my stuff is crunching goes to the beginning of last year, and there was a little bit more fly ball stuff in Wheeler last season. Olsen and Baldwin are actually second and third on my home run model. Wow. Kyle Schwarber. So once I take Harper out, it looks like the top 3, top 4 guys will be in this game against these pitchers.
Yeah, that's standout. I'm getting big projection numbers, but a little bit of cut in the power. But like you mentioned, not as much ways into those splits in mind. So maybe that's creating part of that little bubble of difference. I'm also noticing Drake Baldwin there needs a back end upgrade to boost that power number a little bit. Obviously, it's 105 plate appearances. We don't want to go too far, but that 295, I just noticed that. Where can I make a note of that? I'm going to put it right here. Ignore the fact for the rest of the show, gang, that it says Baldwin right there, but I'm going to update that for the later after the show projections because that needs a little bit of a boost. He's been better than that this season. Favorite bat from go ahead.
Oh no, I was just typing in the Phillies. Favorite bat from the Braves?
Favorite bat from the Braves.
Man. I'm going to go Ozuna, right in the middle of danger. If Acuna or Baldwin can get on, he might see a good pitch with Olsen behind him. But, man, that 1 through 4, really 1 through 5, the ISOs can come through pretty strong here and surprise some people in Citizens Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. In a ballpark built for power upside as well, but definitely tough matchup on the other side. Wheeler striking out 32.7, not really walking anybody at 5.2, pitching to a 2.42 ERA with a 2.51 xFIP. Just been terrific, inducing more swinging strikes at 13.7 this year, just punching out more hitters. And as we mentioned, just works deep into every single game, 70 2/3 over his 11 starts, compared to the guy on the other side, 61 2/3 from Sale in 11 starts. Not terrible depth, but not quite to the extent that Wheeler's giving you. He has gone 7 in each of the last 2 starts. We do have the downside from both of these bullpens working a little bit during the first game of the doubleheader. So talk to me a little bit about Sale and aligning against some of these top-end Phillies like Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Boehm. With no Bryce Harper there, what's the impact to that top end of the Phils and like how much you actually want to get there?
So I always give Sale a little bit of credit because he came out this season with one of the toughest strength of schedules a pitcher could ask for. And he came through with some pretty good results. A little high on the whip, a little over $1.25, 30% carry rate. But this is a tough Phillies team. As a matter of fact, looking at the WRC Plus column against lefties since the beginning of last year, only Remudo, surprisingly, Stott and Rojas have below 100. And you get to Casty, Sosa, Wilson, Schwarber, and Turner. We're talking 130 to 170. And, you look at basically any counting stat average. You go check out ISO, OPS. This is a tough spot for a left-handed pitcher, even if it is Chris Sale. I think this Phillies lineup is starting to warm up to me once I've put in this confirmed lineup and all this green is staring me in the face on my spreadsheet. Yeah, I might be a sucker for some Sale here. Or excuse me, for some Phillies brain.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's, we're getting the upside at least of attacking the probably, two aces of the slate, and the popularity that both of those guys will probably draw even against these two dynamite teams. But like I said, it's just difficult to suppress these guys in the model. And I'm literally talking about, I need to give Drake Baldwin a bump from where he is. So it's a challenge with these two teams and keeping them out of lineups today. Favorite Phillies bats that aren't Kyle Schwarber, because Schwarb's is just absurd. Lefty, doesn't matter at all. He excels against left-handed pitching. He's leading the world against lefties. Favorite bats that aren't Schwarber and let's say not Trey Turner as well, the two most expensive guys?
Yeah. I guess Castellanos. That feels like a cop-out answer. Seems like a decent enough discrepancy between FanDuel and DraftKings as far as his weighted price. I guess a smaller sample between Sosa and Wilson. Sosa's pulling just a 20% K rate in this split with a 144 WRC plus, almost an 890 OPS and 200 ISO. So you might be able to take advantage of some who's that homers. We know these aces like to give those random homers to the bottom half of the lineup. It might be a Sosa or Wilson for value, and I think you can get some real value out of those two, especially considering pitching is a three-headed horse. So if you're not playing Sale, you go, I guess, Wheeler and Gore, and you can offset the difference with like a 2,500 Wilson and go shopping.
And do you think that would be your approach as far as like if I'm stacking fills, then I'll grab some Wheeler and I'll put him with Gore and I'm targeting Chris Sale on that one. And then, by conversely, if I'm grabbing Braves, I'll go with Chris Sale, go with Gore, and I'll attack Wheeler in that lineup. Is that basically how you're mapping this out in your head as we're talking it through?
Yeah. And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, them smaller slates, usually them 2 or 3 game night slates. I'll activate some guys in my lineup against my pitcher, and I'm wondering if this a game that we can get away with one bat against our pitcher. I feel like process wise, I don't want to do it on a 4-gamer.
4 games is usually beyond the limit of where I would do it, but I would say kind of uniquely in this game, the fact that we're mostly talking around home runs and essentially just chasing one big batted ball event, and if we're doing it and saying like max 1, so it's just appearing as a one-off, I don't mind it then, because then you're getting, that one random share of Ozuna. And if he goes deep for a 3-run home run or Riley, same thing with Schwarb, same thing with a cheapo Weston Wilson, just as a spot filler for 2,500 in a lineup targeting Chris Sale. If he puts some of that goodwill that he's put on the ball so far in the very tiny sample this year on the ball tonight, that could be a difference maker at essentially no ownership, because nobody's going to be doing that.
Yeah,
18 home runs in AAA as a 29-year-old last year, something to hang your hat on. 31 in 544 plate appearances as a 28-year-old in AAA back in 23. So, I mean, there's some realistic power there. He's a quad A player for sure, but there's some ability to put bat on ball.
It's a can of wormsy here when I open that.
Sure.
But Chris Sale on DraftKings at least is pushing 55% ownership. And I'm just like, man, there's a chip, because I got Schwarber breaking the model, right? A lot of my power is coming from the other side, ironically, but like, is a Sale Schwarber lineup just like insane? Because I imagine there's going to be inflated ownership on both, but man, you got to wonder what the overlap is on that combo.
Yeah,
on a slate like this.
The baked in savings with Sale at 88 more than pays for Schwarber and just putting them together in that combo. It's really not something I talk about a lot, but like we said, I think uniquely with this setup where we're just kind of looking for some of that power to come through. And even if it's not a big scoring game, we just want to capture that 3-run homer, or on a 4-game slate, just a solo shot could be difference making.
Yeah. And normally we don't have to get this cute, but there's the Blue Jays 4.9 run. This isn't like a bunch of 5-run total games. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you're just looking for that one knockout. And I think, man, this Schwarber Sale combo could be, I don't know, it could land. It could land.
So So don't be surprised, gang, when you see Gunn at the top with Kyle Schwarber against this Chris Sale pitcher. Michael Nack says the real question is, do the Knicks show up tonight? Boy, they better. Home game at MSG, elimination game. They haven't been great at home in the playoffs, but I'll be watching. It hasn't been pretty so far. They need to keep the pace down, in my opinion. Those games have been, the games they've lost have been the 3 higher paced games that have gone higher scoring. The one grindy game they managed to win. Any thoughts there?
I mean, it sucks they lost on the Halliburton tip drill, and once that happens, you feel like it's not meant.
That was the shit moment. Before that, it was feeling like, all right, maybe it's our year to at least make the finals, get interesting. Either way, I didn't have them beating OKC. I didn't have them beating Boston or Cleveland either. So, as is, this is gravy. But yes, Michael, I hope that the Knicks show up tonight, give us at least a little bit more life in our season. No Dalton Var show, it sounds like, for the Blue Jays, says Power. Not completely unexpected. I had an initial lineup that didn't include them, then I decided to work them in so that the Blue Jays would look a little bit better given that high total. Now this will probably knock their projections down again when I pop this confirmed in. Anything to round things out with this Braves Phillies? Anybody to call out like low owned one-off or anything like that you like here before we move on?
No, I think the Sosa Wilson combo, I can't imagine that's going to grab much traction. And now seeing that Chris Sale is the highest owned, and I talked about how much green I'm looking at on this Phillies lineup against lefties. That's looking like where you're going to see Gunn landing on a bunch of Phillies lineups tonight. Right. And if something happens with Sale not being able to go deep, that'd be 2 games in the same day where they've had to call on their bullpen, and it could get kind of crazy. I do know that when I was looking at Roth, they said there could be some rain, but nothing that's going to stop play. So you also get that element of unknown.
And that could be impactful, especially for a guy like Sale. Even a short delay there that raises questions. If it's 4 innings into the game, do they pull him out for a little bit and you get a half-hour delay? Does he come back in? Dicey at that point. Yeah. Let's get into it. But yeah, as you said, it does sound like Roth fully expects it to play. Looking out the window here in Jersey City, it's not a nice day, but Philly's only 90 minutes that way. So Jacob Lopez on the mound for the A's. As we've talked about, not a big strikeout target here, just 18.1% overall for this confirmed version of the Blue Jays lineup, 15% with some small sample in there last year. Actually, there's a 0. It's probably more like 17, 18, if memory serves, for this group of hitters, but an appreciably low strikeout lineup. But like we talked about already, Alejandro Kirk is your cleanup bat. Yeah, he hits the ball hard from time to time. He's low strikeout. You get a lot of consistency of contact, but the premium contact kind of comes and goes. He's a mediocre bat, a struggling Santander, and then a big drop-off with Ernie Clement, Miles Straw, Jonathan Klaas, and Michael Stefanich. So really difficult to envision this lineup really turning over a whole bunch of times unless Lopez just goes out there with nothing, or if he's walking the world, which obviously in his 14 innings this year with a 12-1 against his 25.8% strikeout rate, that's been a little bit of an issue. And it looked like in a minor league sample, that was also an issue. How much faith do you have in these Blue Jays pushing that even 5-run total? And then beyond that, as you think about that, how much belief do you have that they can make that 5-run implied more like a 9-10 run day?
I think the Varsho being out of the lineup might be a net positive with his 30% K rate, right? Like, this is more contact involved. Yeah. I don't know what to make of Lopez based on what, like, everything we have in the major league is kind of like counterintuitive together that I got in the spreadsheet. Like, I got a 4.3 Sierra, but a 2.85 expected ERA. I mean, the whip is high because of the high walk rate. When I'm looking at Stuff Plus, I got an 88 this season, 88 last season, 90. So, nothing stellar there. The location's been solid. So I guess what I'm worried about for his sake is if he's not striking out these Blue Jays and he's walking the world and, all of a sudden after 2 innings, he's got 7 base runners and somebody was able to knock him through, then we dip into one of the worst bullpens in baseball and all bets are off. And that's what I'm worried about. That scenario, I think, is where the Blue Jays could could really, really shine here. And I know Lopez so far this season, just a 2% barrel rate, but in the last 2 seasons and only 22 innings, we've seen that barrel rate, be 10+%. So I really don't know what Jacob Lopez is to project him. So usually when I can't project a pitcher, I always say bad hitting beats bad pitching. Not that the Blue Jays are bad hitters, but at the major league level, it's harder to be an average pitcher and succeed. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. I don't know what to expect from Lopez.
Yeah, I think, most problematically, I think the walks is what really gets in the way of success here for him. A few guys on base, if nothing else, runs the pitch count up real quick artificially, and then he's, high leverage counts and everything. Just gets problematic in a hurry given those walks, and that's been a hiccup for him looking back through the minor leagues. It also speaks to me a little bit that he was a Tampa Bay prospect, and he's no longer a Tampa Bay prospect, despite pitching to a AAA 27.9% strikeout rate, 29.8 2 years ago, and then upper 30s at the lower levels of the minor leagues. He was walking 12-14% through those stretches, and now he's not with the Tampa Bay organization, and they are super sharp about pitching. So that tells me maybe something to fill in the unknowns in the back end, at least, to kind of jibe with the walk rate being a problem, to jibe with the 2.57 ERA, but a 5.03 xFIP, the high Sierra. The low expected ERA is weird. I love when stats that are supposed to go together don't. That's always fun. But yeah, I'm with you. The barrels from the rest of the major league sample outside of these 14 innings are concerning. There's enough power on the other side to beat him with a guy like Vladdy there, with even obviously a Santander who's been one of the better home run hitters in the league for the last handful of years before cratering so far this year. There's enough there to beat him. It's just that short lineup. The guys that are the obvious guys at the top are the guys that everybody's going to go to for DFS. So are you pursuing them aggressively, or is it more like, yeah, that's probably a good spot, but everybody's going to be there and maybe I want to go different ways, or at the very least figure out kind of alternate ways to put this team together that maybe people aren't doing as much?
Yeah, it feels a little if you are brand new to baseball and you're like, how do I play this slate? Well, you're just going to grab the team with the highest run total, and it's clearly the Blue Jays. And I'm looking at ownership for them. It's them and the Rays are the top 2 owned stacks right now pre-flop. So I can't really disagree with that as far as the process goes. Obviously, our job is to put some makeup on and get cute here. And I think that happens in the bottom half of this lineup. But, man, I have not put money on Miles Straw in a long time.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. That is one of the ultimate, low strikeout, low walk, just contact oriented hitters who can maybe swipe you a base kind of guys. But yeah, he's sitting down there just 3,000 on DK, just 2,200 notably on FanDuel. You got Stefanich, who fits in at least at second base for 21 for the dead min price on FanDuel. He's showing a weird home run mark. Yeah, that's another one I didn't catch.
For Stefanich?
All these random guys need apparently some back end updates. That is oddly standing out for power.
He is one of the lowest on my board.
Yeah, he's not supposed to have that number. That's got to be something funky on the back end. I'm just glad I caught it.
He's the third lowest on my board.
Yeah, where do you have Vladdy in this matchup? Larry C asks why Vladdy's low in my model against Lopez. It's mostly to answer Larry real quick. Just lack of substantial home runs against at the major league level, really. Back in this sample, it was 0. There were a few here, but it was only 1 start, 10 in a third inning. So it's only, counting wise, I think that's probably representing 1 home run, maybe 2. And same thing this year. There's just not a lot there. It does include some averaging of some numbers in the minors, and he was actually decent at limiting home runs against in the minors. Not that I count that for all that much, but sub 1 home runs per 9 at a lot of stops throughout the minor leagues until just last year. He had a little blip last year, but that's having a little impact here on the Blue Jays lineup numbers. What are your home run numbers looking like for Vladdy for the top end?
So I have Vladdy at a 14% probability, and that's based on a little bit on the starting matchup. But I also have a qualifying innings of 20 before it really gets considered for what they've done in the major league level, and he doesn't have 20 innings against righties yet. From the beginning of last year.
Okay.
Last year he did allow a little bit of power. I think he had 3 Let me see. Splits. I have 2 righties. I have 1 homer this year to righties, last year 3. So 3 total in less than 20 innings. There's certainly something there, but then I like to substantiate that with the batted ball, because homers in Sutter Health maybe don't equal homers in Rogers Center. And looking at his,
I think that's going to be a thing.
20% hard contact to righties last season with a 75% fly ball rate. So a lot of pop-ups in those 2 metrics. This season, a 63% fly ball rate to righties with a 13% hard contact rate. So as if we didn't have inconsistent numbers with him so far. We've got low hard contact, high fly ball rates, and some homers. Nothing makes sense here. I don't know. If you didn't put a name on this pitcher and you threw me all these numbers, I would think you're just pulling random numbers out of a hat.
Yeah, so that's kind of the answer there, Larry. To answer your question in chat, Larry, I think that's basically all coming through my model here as well, and just some inconsistencies kind of mashing up. I will take care of that Stefanich number. I gotta fix those back end projections. He had just replacement stuff that I put in there weeks ago, and I didn't notice it was having that kind of a weird impact. So I got to look at that and just take away whatever power I had accidentally given him. On the A side, targeting Jose Barrios, who, again, it's definitely a pitcher that I love targeting. He's pitching to a 4.22 ERA with a 4.31 xFIP, 20.6% strikeouts against 9.6% walks, sub 10% swinging, 27.4% CSW, 12+% barrels allowed, 42. He's over the threshold that I look for power there, and here, giving up probably lucky just a 3.68% home run rate overall. It's a pitcher I will target basically every time. With all that in mind, how much utility does he have at 7,600, 8,200 against an Oakland A's lineup that's striking out this version of the lineup just 18.4, but that's obviously artificial. Let me give you a more realistic number, 17.9% for 7 of these 9 hitters who have the actual sample sizes. How does he stack up at 7,682 and you're pitching like, how much can you use them?
That is, I think Jacob Wilson and Shea Langelier, or Jacob Wilson and Miguel Andujar is bringing that down.
For sure.
I think I just don't like Jose Barrios. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like maybe I'm just jealous. Every 5 days, people like him, and every now he comes through. But man, I swear the Athletics keep calling kids up, and every time I look them up, they're like batting 300 with 850 OPS in the minor. I'm like, wait, they just got this guy available, and we're just now seeing him. So even though Nick Kurtz went down, I have a lot more hope and belief in this Athletics lineup, I guess, than I do in Barrios, which is really kind of dumb because we at least know that Barrios has been a big league pitcher for years. As far as
he's been a gettable big league pitcher,
100%.
I feel like you and I have been shouting that from the mountaintop.
Maybe I just don't want to be ultra wrong here, but so I guess ownership really is going to be the answer here. And Jose Barrios is the top guy, not named Sale, Gore, and Wheeler in terms of ownership, and then it drastically falls off a cliff here. So if he's going to be the 4th highest owned, that likely means the stack against him is going to be not as high owned, and they're about 5th. So I understand why people are clicking his name, but I think I think it's more so no Nick Kurtz, and we don't know who Avens and Davidson is. But if you take some time to look it up, it's a sharp lineup through and through. So maybe I'm a Cinderella guy, but I'm more on the Athletic side than the Barrios side. So I probably will let the field have Barrios at the 4th highest ownership and be on the other side.
Yeah, and as I'm eyeballing it too, I mentioned how well the A's project generally for me, and you can see some monster projections on the board for a lot of hitters that we know and know pretty well by now. A couple premium home run model numbers, 2 guys over the magic number, 2 guys hovering right around it with the obvious names there. What strikes me the most, and it's a DraftKings thing way more than FanDuel, everybody is dirt cheap. Brent Rooker's 4,200 today.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Wilson is slashing 353, 396, 512, and creating around 61% better than average by WRC Plus with 7 home runs on the board. He cost 4,300 at shortstop against Jose Barrios today. Lawrence Butler for 41, Soderstrom for 4,000, Shea Langeliers for 39, Andujar 34, and then you get to the min price guys down the bottom. There's so much value here to target Jose Barrios, who is a super gettable pitcher. I just think that really, really stands out. On FanDuel, it's different. They're very affordable, but it's nowhere near the discount. How is that not standing out to people? You think they're going to get more ownership than sites are projecting?
I don't know, because I don't know if the average player is looking up these minor league stats, but I just typed in Drew Avens MILB.
Talk to us about Avens.
I know it's PCL and it's more offensive prone. This guy, so far this season in the minors, a 328 batting average, a 414 OBP, 858 OPS. He has 4 homers, 16 stolen bases, and he's min-priced in the 7 hole. Like, I think I want that.
Absolutely. And it's, if you look at the numbers and like what he does well, it's demonstrable talent, because it goes back PCL or no. And some of these years are in the Dodgers organization, so there is no PCL. He's an older minor league player, but it's consistently high average, very high on base, excellent run creation. He's not the greatest power bat, but it looks like he draws a ton of walks. He steals an absolute ton of bases, and he's got mid-grade type power. So if we're just talking about counting stats for the dead min price in the outfield, looks like a dynamite option against Jose Barrios from the left side. Love that.
And that'll make your Wheeler, Gore, Sale lineups fill out pretty easily, and you don't even feel like you're losing much.
Yeah, absolutely. It just fits right in with this stack as far as, positionally, you do have multiple outfielders up at the top that you want, but if you're spreading out for cost, which you don't really need to do with everybody being so cheap. But let's say, I think I want Lawrence Butler. That's the thing. I want all 3 of these guys in this lineup. Let's say we forgo Butler. We start with Wilson at short, and we just go straight down the line through those 4 and then add him in there. I'm averaging that 5-man down to 3,680, so 3,700 apiece for a stack that includes Jake Wilson, Brent Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, and Drew Avens against Jose Barrios. Sign me up. That is cheap, and you can make it even cheaper if you include Andujar, who is slashing 310, 339, 418. Do you think that's real? How sustainable is that?
His batting or slash line?
His general slash line. There's no real power or premium contact there, but do you think he's a truly 300 hitter, respectable on base, decent ability, 115-ish WRC plus guy, or does this crater around that 292 xWOB of the 108 ISO that we're seeing?
Yeah, man, I wish he drew more walks for me to believe, but it just seems like he swings and doesn't miss.
Yeah.
So who is it? Was it Gene Segura? It kind of reminds me of Gene Segura a little bit with less upside, I guess.
That's an interesting comp. Yeah, I think Segura probably had a little bit more pop than what he's shown, but in the past, he was more of a power bat. He was more of a mid-board type power bat.
I think he was like
weird change,
leading the league in doubles when he was on the Yankees.
Right? Yeah.
And
interesting swap for him, but he's been super playable. You don't get a ton of runs or big scoring events, but you get at least a few shots at multi-base hit day and maybe some correlated scoring. On FanDuel, he plays 3 positions, which is great. I don't think he's ideal at third base on DraftKings, but for only 34, he's easy to play there. What about Lawrence Butler with some of the struggles at 248, 304, 443? Still a good ISO, 111 WRC plus. Nothing wrong with that. Some very good premium contact. Where do you think he lands? Do you think we see him return to more the form that we saw throughout an excellent year toward the end of last year? Or do you think it's more this kind of guy going forward?
No, I believe in him. But yeah, the skids have been interesting, and we've seen them be really responsive with skids. We've seen him demoted in the order. We've seen him kind of bounce around and even get off days. I guess maybe I'm just a sucker for believing in the Cinderella story. Maybe I don't wait to the park as much, but they were doing a lot of this at the end of the last year in the Coliseum. So, I'm a believer. Sometimes I like to guess who's going to pitch behind Barrios if he fails for a stack. And yesterday we saw Braden Fisher and Paxton Schultz throw 20 and 45 pitches respectively. The long reliever that I'm looking at that hasn't thrown in a couple days that would probably get his number called if they get to Barrios early is Jose Urena, and I'm in on that.
We know that's targetable.
Yeah, so I'm really selling myself on. And then the shorter guys, Chad Green is probably available to pitch, and Mason Flaherty is also probably available. But Jeff Hoffman pitched yesterday. He's their elite closer. He doesn't pitch a lot back to back. So they might get some more quality arms to attack in a good way behind Barrio. So I'm really selling myself on the Athletics in their 3.8 run total.
I'm a big believer in this spot. I really like the upside here. 381 implied total. I think, hopefully keeps them a little bit under the radar. It looks like that is the case across sites, despite the cheap pricing. I do think, maybe given the upside of some of those hitters at those cheap prices, maybe that starts coming through sims and lineup builds as people actually start crunching things out. But going to be really interesting to see. Any final thoughts on this one before we move on? Any late lineup hitters, surprises, anything like that you want to throw at us?
I just can't wait for Barrio CGSO to just every 5 days.
Always. Every time I get excited about a spot, it's always the way. I try and throw it in there. Cue the terrible performance on the opposite side of what I said, because it's baseball, folks. That is how this game goes. Let's move on to Rays and Astros. Let me grab the Rays lineup. Got the low-low combination up top. Can you explain to me Chandler Simpson hitting 6th?
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's such a non-Rays decision too. They're smarter than this.
If anything, I would have put him in front of Caminero. He's been the double play guy to start the season. He might be harder to double off, but yeah, no, either 9 or lead off. I'd probably lead off and get him in front of some guys that can drive him in. He's not really in front. Meisner, Caballero, and Tice, not really guys that are going to hit for great average with high K rate. So yeah, that might Kevin Cash. I don't know. He's sleeping at the wheel there. I don't know what that is about. Yeah,
it's just a really weird spot to play a guy who is 100% hit tool, patience, get on base, and not even really patience at the major league level yet, but just the ability to get on base, and then the rocket booster that he's got on his back to make him the fastest guy in the league. 16 steals and 128 plate appearances, despite only getting on at a 312 clip so far. But 100% belongs in the 9 spot or the 1 spot. They do have very good options at the top of the lineup, even with John D. Diaz completely underwhelming at 279 on base so far. Josh Lowe in his small sample of 50 plate appearances at 340. We know that John D is way, way better at getting to first base than he's been this year. So they do have playable options up there, but it just makes Simpson so odd to play in this spot, because what are we looking at him for RBIs, or like you said, resetting the table for Meisner, Caballero, and Matt Bays? There's not a lot to love there. It makes him more difficult to play because you're not looking at him to really clean the table after Caminero's at first base. It's not how this lineup works. What do you think of the bottom end and how it fits together? If you wanted to start with, like, say 3 down as a 5-man stack, what would you include there?
I mean, you would out of 7, 8, 9 or 6, 7, 8, 9?
Just from like 3 down. Start with Yandy and work down and include 5 guys. Just trying to make up a weird question.
Yeah. Aranda 1, obviously. Caminero, if he can lift the ball, he still has a 200 plus ISO. And then I think we're kind of spinning the wheel on the others. Gusto has been pretty splitty as far as keeping lefties or keeping righties at bay and lefties going crazy on them. So maybe you get that chip in a chair Chandler swing, but it's absolutely Jonathan Aranda number 1.
Yeah, I love the premium contact there. 11.8% barrels, 54.6% hard hits, 7 homers, great slash line, monster 392 xWOB under the covers, 163 WRC plus, and somehow 4,700. Second most expensive player on the team, but everybody below 5,000 on this team too. It's a cheap day.
Yeah. It's the Rays have been kind of, they're not quite frustrating to me as far as like the Orioles and the Blue Jays are, because you kind of know what you're going to get. But there's sometimes I fall in love with this team and it doesn't come through, especially when they're in Tampa.
Yeah, especially around that lefty power that they've got. We play the same game.
Yeah, but Lau, Aranda are usually always pretty high. Today in the bomb detector, not named. Actually, I got Rooker. Aranda is number 5 for me out of the entire slate, and Lau's number 7. Both at about 16% probability. So those are 2 guys that would be on the home run radar for me that I don't have to sweat an elite arm like Sailor or Wheeler.
Yeah, for sure. Gusto giving up a 3.75% home run rate so far on way over the line, 44.8% hard hits, 91.8 miles an hour of exit velo on average, 9.5% barrels in his 35 innings, 6 starts. He's striking out 23.8, walking 10%. He's only 6,400 on the DraftKings slate. In 150 lineups, how many times are you using him to target some Rays bats for cheap pricing on the mound?
Rhonda?
No, Ryan Gusto on the mound going
Augusta.
the other way,
Oh, man, I really
changing things up.
Yeah, he does at least have an equal strikeout rate to both sides, and this is a lineup that can strike out 1 in 4 times on the aggregate. So if you can keep allowing around in the park, like I said, there are some ground ball spots here, and there's some even if you let Chandler on, you could pretty much pitch your way out of it. So I actually think you could at 6,400 make a case for him to be a more volatile but clickable. If you're just chasing strikeouts and deep flyouts that stay in the park, I think at the second lowest price, he obviously has way more K probability than Hancock. It's a wide range of outcomes, but there is a outcome of 15 plus fantasy points at that price point. Not a play that I get to a lot in this slate, but I get it, and that would be hell has frozen over if he's going to be optimal over Sale, Gore, and Wheeler. But crazier things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, I have him slightly ahead of Hancock, but I think there is a little bit more love in my heart, I think, for this spot, and maybe use Gusto to target. Probably overall, as much as I do have some love for a lot of these Rays that we just mentioned, I think probably is one of the more usable guy from down bottom there. Just more faith in him for some reason than Hancock. So I think I'm with you there. Maybe part of it, the 11.3% swinging strikes. He could maybe just find his way to some punch outs while giving up some runs. I think you're just dealing too with a situation where we're just talking about how he compares to the guys at also the bottom of the barrel, where we expect everybody to give up a few runs today. I don't think anybody's pitching really, outside of the aces. I'm talking about the guys down level. Everybody's giving up a few runs. So if you manage to bullseye the guy that pitches 6 clean innings, you're probably going to be well on your way to a very good score. But out of those guys, I think Gusto does have the upside there. Talk to me a little bit about Shane Baz. I know we did it a little bit going up against this Astros lineup, but you mentioned the reverse splits most notably. I think that righty power is really interesting. But then we get this mix of lineup. Where do you ultimately come down in this equation? Because it is not an overwhelmingly name brand focused lineup, let's say.
Yeah, it's average hitting versus average pitching. What wins at the major league level? Maybe there's a little bit of inflation in Baz's power allowed because of the home park, because he does have a 54% ground ball rate to righties, and that usually doesn't pair up with a 2 homer per 9 to righties, but he does also have an 11.5% barrel rate. So I think pre-flop, if you told me that there's no Alvarez, I would just be like, okay, Christian Walker, Isak, Paredes, Pena, all those guys can come through for me. But man, this is a really, really weak offense. And I mean, like literally strength weak. When your highest split ISO is Isak Paredes at 165, yeah, that's not what you want. So they hit, I won't say for decent average, but they, Diaz, unlike some other bottom of the lineups, you look at the bottom of this Astros lineup and you focus on the split. I got 276, 269, 264, 275 average against righties since the beginning of last year. So maybe you get some sneaky on base that can turn the lineup over to a Pena, Paredes, Altuve. If you are trying to steal a bottom of the lineup click, but it's just a wash for me. I just feel like I end up with very little of both sides. On a 4-game slate, that's probably the wrong answer. But I have no confidence in pretty much either side. I'm
with you there. And with those Astros too, you get a lot of low strikeout guys in those first 6 spots in the lineup. So it's not even a day where it's like, all right, Baz at least can miss some bats, 10% swinging on his upside days. He misses more than that, 22.3% strikeout rate, but an 11 strikeout game against Boston back in mid-April, a 10 strikeout game to start the season against the Pirates does spike some upside from time to time. But this is an ideal matchup for that with how low strikeout this team is too. It's very much like the Blue Jays. The Royals are in that mix a lot. The teams that I say that about a lot. So I really, any positive attributes that we're chasing with Baz really kind of limited. And then you mentioned the power. Most of the home runs, looking at it throughout his game log, have come in their home park. But notably, he had a pair of 2 home run games back to back, and they were at Toronto and at Miami. Both of them 2 home run games. And it's been a stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row that he's allowed at least 1. And with those 2 games in there. So there has been power on the road. A lot of it's come at home. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle as far as that goes, but there's a lot of barrels allowed. He's over the threshold in every one of the three major power categories here, allowing a 4.29% home run. So with me, for me, we're chasing the stuff plus rating. We're chasing some swinging strike against a team that's maybe not going to give that to us. So as kind of mid as this entire Astros lineup looks, it does strike me as maybe, to your point about the hit tool quality that you get down lineup, maybe it's a longer lineup than it is like a higher quality lineup. It's stretched, but it doesn't have any kind of peak, barely even like a hill. But maybe you can put some of these bats together for cheap pricing and just get there via the base hits, get there via some balls in play and a couple run scoring events rather than a big power knock. Do you have like a 3-man that would be like your ideal combo of Astros here?
I'm over here trying to click buttons to see if maybe they can steal some bag. Houston has the 3rd lowest stolen bases on the season.
Is that right?
Like,
That's
if
surprising.
if you're not going to hit for power and you got a little average there and you think you would go more, only the Angels and the Tigers have fewer stolen bases.
And both of those teams make sense that they're not stealing many bases.
Exactly.
This team stands out. That really sticks out. That's something that you would that over time has been kind of a plus attribute for this squad too.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe if you're looking to just grab one bat from the bottom of the lineup, Yiner, or I don't know about Dubon. I don't know. There's no confidence. This was like, if you're not gonna steal, you're not gonna hit for power. I don't know if 2 singles is gonna be enough, even if you get on and get hit in by a Pena or Paredes. So this is like some uninteresting baseball to me flop.
What an ugly slate this is overall. With these, especially the way that some of these lineups are landing, with no Walker here, it's brutal for the heart of the lineup. Bad as he's been, it would have at least been something to kind of center the conversation around. You get Altuve here for me at a 7.21 in the home run model. You do have a decent number on Paredes. We know this ballpark plays up his power with that way that he dumps home runs into the left field corner. He's got 11 on the season, 208 ISO, but we know he doesn't exactly crush the ball. 5.4% barrels, 34.5% hard hits. So it's just a collision of just weird factors. 2 questions to round out the Astros. One, how real it's really a how real on both guys. How real do you think the upside we've seen from Jeremy Pena is so far? And how real do you think that the downside we've seen from Jose Altuve has been so far?
Well, one of those downsides is very enjoyable for someone like me. But Pena, yeah, I can buy into Pena. Again, I'm not like see anything that just screams off the page for me, but I'm rooting for him more than I am Altuve, and I enjoy seeing Altuve blunder quite a bit. Looking at anything from Pena this season, I guess we're just looking at like barrel rate and just how often they are putting the ball in play, and especially when a lot of these at bats are not coming with like protection behind them in the form of Alvarez just knocking on the door. I think I buy into Pena, and Altuve is just declining. You can only be that body type for so long and expect him to succeed for so long, and then when you stick him in the outfield, he's getting what he deserves. But Pena has maybe it's a way bigger leap in WRC plus that most people would have expected. He gained 100 points on his OPS, but I get it. He's having good at bats. It's not like it's a combo of 25-30% K rate with that. It just seems like he's a good contact leadoff guy.
Yeah, he shaved 3 points off his strikeout rate or close to and put it directly into his walk rate. It's still a 6.4% walk rate. It's not like he's getting on base via the walk like crazy, but it's a ton of balls in play. It's just enough walks. He's getting on base a lot, creating a lot of run scoring situations, swiping a few bags, hitting a few homers. He's been really good. It's taken me a little bit by surprise. I didn't think that he was going to be this level of player, but I'm willing to believe at this point. I think there's enough sustainability here. The 343 xWOBA suggests the same thing. And yeah, Altuve's 284 xWOBA under the covers. It's really getting difficult to believe. But like we said, some signs of life lately. 2 home run games in the last week, 10 days or whatever. He's up to 8, 4 stolen bases, 267, 316, 410, 105 WRC plus. He's at worst playable for what we need him for here for DFS, right? And it's not like a write-off.
Yeah, he's clickable.
You want him at second base or in the outfield?
I want him in the stands. In the
I
parking
typically
lot.
want him at second base if I'm building a lineup. I want those outfield spots for a big power bat or somebody from another team, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. EMAC in the chat. Look at that. Not sure if he's still here. That was from a couple minutes ago, just noticing it. I was actually going to send EMAC a link in case he wanted to, come in off the top rope or from the rafters like Sting back in the late 90s, early 2000s and drop into the show.
Yeah,
Not sure if he's allowed to do that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know. I seem to have good relationships with everybody there. One of these one of these nights in the summer, dude, we're gonna have like a live cast of a slate and just enjoy it. And
that would be a blast. I would love to do that.
Yeah,
pop some games on, have a couple pop a couple beers back here, shoot the shit. I love it. Emacs here. There he is. Cheers, buddy. Anything to round out Rays and Astros here before we jump to what is our last game?
No, I like the Rays more pre-flop. Obviously, I always kind of give some credit to bullpens. The Astros bullpen has been like really good. So you might not get a super long game, but Gusto's and his lefty splits, man. Lau and Aranda banging on them and their 2.5 implied at bats to get one.
Yeah, I do like some of those lefty bats here going up against Gusto. I think I'm with you. Rays a little bit over the Astros and just hope that I'm not kind of falling in love with some of those lefties in that premium contact. But yeah, a guy like Aranda screams to me. Brendan Lau, same deal. Moving on to our last game. I think we've got lineups here too. We got the Mariners, not the Nats yet. We've got Mackenzie Gore on the mound facing Emerson Hancock. One of these things not like the other. Any reason in the world that we can see outside of just being a free square at 6,000 relative to other guys on this slate price-wise? Any reasons to consider Emerson Hancock on like his quality, the matchup, anything like that?
No. No.
Good answer.
Right, if Hancock is optimal, I've lost money. Like there is just there's no way pre-flop Hancock should come out here and shove against one of the worst K rate to target. There's no lane. Like no, if Hancock has optimized this slate, this is not a slate that I want to remember tomorrow. I might start drinking.
Yeah, he's given up some home runs this year. Medium contact overall, if you got to point to like a positive attribute. The 15.7% strikeout rate is anemic on its own against the 6.7% walk rate. It's not much better as a strikeout to walk. I'll give him credit for a 4.31 xFIP under a 5.95 ERA, but that's where I'll stop on an 8.9% swinging strike rate at 24.6% CSW, 91 rating by Stuff Plus. Just know they're there. And he's going up against the Nats lineup that, like I said at the top, I at least like the top end here. Some CJ Abrams, some James Wood. Maybe it's one-offs. Maybe it's two-mans on a short slate. Two-mans are more viable in my opinion. There are down lineup bats that I think you can stretch for, and they're all very affordable and cheap. But I really like the looks of those two. And as mentioned, made James Wood the home run pick of the day today. So I'm all over that spot. Outside of those two bats up at the top of the Nats, and you throw those guys in and share opinions on those, of course, too. But what do we like going from like 3 down in this projected version of the Nationals lineup?
Luis Garcia, he's a good, like he's not like super great at any one thing, but 281 average, 180 ISO, like 781 OPS, like that's enough. That dog will hunt, especially when you cross-reference it with the just damp stats of Hancock. So I'm in on that. Josh Bell, whatever. Robert Hassel, I think he finally got into one last night. His minor league stats kind of give me Garcia vibes, 288 average, 337 OBP, 742 OPS. So not like extremely great at any one thing, but 4 homers and 9 stolen bases and 163 at bats against maybe not a major league level pitcher. That dog will hunt. And Dalen Lyle? Let me look him up real quick. Lyle in the minors so far this season.
Denman Dalen?
337. Holy crap. Yo, this guy's a monster. What the heck? 337 average, 383 OBP, 892 OPS, 9 stolen bases. Yeah, I want that. So I this is one of the longer lineups. I think them and the Athletics, they I get too enamored with the Cinderella minor league numbers, and a lot of times those minor league numbers come up and all of a sudden you're not that guy, pal. But Against Hancock, I'm willing to take a chance. Like if Hancock was pitching in AAA right now, I'd probably expect him to get beat up in AAA. So
right, yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's much to work with him, and definitely a pitcher that make a habit of targeting anybody who's that low strikeout and gives up premium contact to go with all the available contact in general. Definitely something to chase there, and to throw a little bit of wood on the fire with Mr. Dalen Lyle there. I'll point to his very, very low strikeout rates with pretty high end walk rates in those stops in the minor leagues as well. This year in AAA, 82 plate appearances, or excuse me, this year 176 minor league plate appearances, half and half, AA, AAA, 13.1% strikeouts, 6.8% walks with that spectacular slash line that you mentioned. Last year, high A and AA, 17.3% strikeouts, 9.6% walks, another very good on base percentage. So at worst, for maybe some cheap correlated scoring from a guy that people aren't going to consider all that strongly, even at the dead min, hitting ninth most likely, super gettable spot as a wraparound play. That's kind of ideal with what he does well, putting him back ahead of CJ Abrams, James Wood, the bats that we like. I think that to answer my own question from before, I think just grabbing the top two and a wraparound third man as like the favored 3-man build for this team might be the approach. That averages me down to 4,400 apiece, and I'm getting CJ Abrams, James Wood, and that kid's on base skills, table setting ability, the second, third, and fourth time through the lineup. What do you think of that as a 3-man? Do you go to that wraparound play when it's that cheap with some kind of like viable angle on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was looking at the Nationals ownership, and they were top 3, top 4. I didn't dissect that yet to see if that is on those bottom half guys, because a lot of people just don't click guys that they know. And I think it's real easy to not want Lyle or Hassel, or we even talked about the Athletics where we were talking about Avens. Like, there's a lot of salary that would be left on the table if you start filling up a lineup with those guys. And I think that's where salary really doesn't matter to most extent on baseball, especially on these small slates. You could have a real fun lineup with maybe some salary left over with guys like that.
Yeah, especially with, like you said, only 4 games on deck. There's not a lot of reason to, make sure that you're maxing out salary. And I've been banging that drum for years now. You don't have to spend all your money on baseball salary, all your salary cap in baseball. That was difficult to say. It's changing somewhat via Sims, I think, because Sims are injecting more non-fully stacked lineups into the equation that are getting to some of the higher end salary combos and maxing things out. So I do think that's changing a little bit, but it comes right back to earth on a 4-gamer like this. You can do all sorts of things there. So yeah, getting down lineup, leaving some salary on the table, creating some differences that way, I think is a way to roster highly owned things in other spots too and create some differentiation.
100%. Yo, Terry, let me make an announcement here. We got over 80 people hanging out on a 4-game slate. We're talking some baseball. I see only 30 likes, and I see you're about 50 subs away from 1,000. Chat, when you get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, it unlocks another level of monetization, which is just another revenue stream. So I feel like if you're out there lurking, you're liking what you're hearing, you could be anonymous about it. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that sub button, push to 1K. We got to get Terry to 1,000 subs before July 1st. Like, there's no reason to not do that.
He's so much better at this than I am, isn't he?
Years of solo grinding.
I'm so bad at I'll be here 2.5 hours into a show like, oh shit, I never told anybody what the website is. Like, never hits the front of my brain. So bad at that. Appreciate it. But yeah, hit the like, hit the subscribe, jump over to Gun's channel, make sure you're subscribed on all of his stuff. Check out his website. It's linked in the description below. Follow him on Twitter at Gundacker. That's also linked down there. Rotoscouts. Check out our guys over at acemind.io as well for all your sim and optimization needs. Give those guys a shout out. Promo code Rotoscouts, all in caps, still gets you 20% off your first month over there. So give those guys some love. We'll definitely have them back more in the picture for NBA, NFL with some of the where I get more into sims. Do you use sims a lot for baseball, or are you more old school build and sort filter kind of baseball results? Where are you coming down on sims for baseball?
So I've been learning how to use sims. I have the stochastic sim tool, and I've only been able to open the hood like 4 or 5 times, maybe not even this season, but each time I've done it, I've learned more and more. So like, I didn't like clicking a button and then all of a sudden I got 90% Rocky stacks. You know what I mean? So I've learned that you have to, you have to put your fingerprints on it and set some exposures and tweak what you do like, what you don't like. But there's been a lot of times I look at what the sim spits out and I'm like, no, that's stupid. And then I turn around and it goes crazy. Tool wise, I think it's genius. DFS wise, I hate it because
it's changed the industry.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's not fun, man. Everyone's just clicking buttons and it
used to be a lot easier to win some of these things. It really did. They've definitely changed. But yeah, I'm kind of caught in between as far as just specifically baseball. Like NBA, I'm fully sims. I used to sim in Excel, and this has just made it way, way easier, quick, and way more dynamic. But I found a lot with baseball. I can go to my old school sort and get a lot of the same lineups. If I took 1,500 lineups that I built in an optimizer, put it into the sim, put it into the old school way, largely I'm getting the same results because of how I had it set up for, this much weight to projection, that much weight to ownership. So it's just kind of reinforcing a lot of the back end as far as like those were good lineups to be putting in. So I find myself still kind of more focused in utilizing the old process. And that's why I ask sharp people that, is it just, I want to make sure I'm not caught in between or just stuck in my ways and not getting to the new thing. And we do see, like you said, the killer results people are having. So
yeah, I might have the optimizer I was using, I don't know what's going. I think I don't know what's going on with that place. So I kind of got forced to learn either, and there's not really optos out there anymore. So I had to join or figure out sims. So
yeah,
and I'm still putting projections in there, so I kind of get the same results. But yeah, it's just a fancier optimizer, I guess. And
yep. And there's always, there is advantage to what you just said too. Like you've got your projection set. If people are out there, they're using yours, they're using mine, putting them into the tools that some of these other sites are providing. I think that gives you a little bit of differentiation, a little bit of edge, because I'm going to have it a little different than you do. We're both going to have it a little bit different than Awesemo does and so on. So I think there's value in having that, the ability to build lineups that way while utilizing other different data. Looking at back to the slate here and rounding things off with some Mariners bats going up against Matt Gore. Talk to me a little bit about Gore on the mound, things that you love. He's having a just ridiculous season. I guess maybe as a downside, you could point to the 100 kind of on the nose rating by Stuff Plus, but he makes it work. A little bit of premium contact, but it hasn't really hurt him. Are there warts to pick at here, or is he just this good?
Yeah, I thought when he came out firing against the Phillies, and then the Phillies were talking about the shadows, I was like, all right, maybe he's not this good. But man, he's kind of sustained this K percentage, and you see the increase in swing and strike rate as well, while the called strike's the same. The barrel rate's still a little bit up there, and you kind of get that with your elite strikeout guys. You look at Prime, Max Scherzer, you look at Sale. These guys are going to attack you. Yeah, they'll give up the homers as well. I've also kind of been talking a lot about splits, and Kenzie Gore's kind of reverse splits in terms of power, and it kind of doesn't make a ton of sense because he's, since the beginning of last year, allowed over a 25% line drive rate to righties, but most of his homers are coming against lefties. And if you believe in that, and I know it gets really noisy. I think we look at pictures like Cole Reagans, maybe Chris Bubitz, guys like that that are lefties, that you could also look at their splits versus righties and lefties. This Mariners lineup comes out one lefty, ironically a non-power hitter. So he might get the benefit of being able to sustain that against their strong power guys, J-Rod, the Cal Rowleys of the world. So maybe that's a net plus for him to keep him in the park, even if it is long doubles, keep him out of the earned run negatives. So I definitely have Gore ranked as my favorite option from this game. And right now, tentatively, I've got Nats too, and I think that's specifically because I got Gore so high up. But it's hard to discredit the Mariners as an offense. I think a lot of people, if you're just casually watching the league, you don't really realize that the Mariners are, top 10 in runs scored. And you think of their ballpark, they're also top 10 in stolen bases. They got a 114 team WRC plus, which is the fourth highest in baseball. So their offense is good. When the only teams higher than you in WRC plus are the Cubs, Dodgers, and Yankees, you're in good company. So don't fall asleep on the Mariners. But this is certainly a spot where pre-flop I'm leaning more towards the pitcher, and you get all the environmental shifts that he might not get elsewhere with the park factors at T-Mobile.
Yeah, I love the fact that we get him with the ballpark on his side. And everything you just said about the Mariners, I'm a big believer in. The power is very real with this team. The run creation has been there this year. And this is, with Julio still kind of scuffling at 240, 313, 424. The power's been there a little bit with 10 homers, with just a 184 ISO, premium contact down a little bit. So when that bat comes roaring back, there's even more to give with this Mariners team. So I do think that their offense is good. They've been very playable for DFS. But they've also had their downside days where they become very targetable. And when I can get a premium pitcher who's pitching in this kind of form against that, I tend to land on the pitcher side still, even with that healthy respect for the Mariners bats. So yeah, fire up the Mackenzie Gore for me. And then if we're talking about stacking Mariners, any favorites in there? Cal Raleigh strikes me obviously with that premium power, even though he's going to be doing it presumably from the right side. Julio with his struggles, but from the right side, like you said, Crawford, the only lefty in the lineup. If you were chasing the reverse splits, not much of a power guy, but an excellent table setter and back on form. Are you just looking at the top end? Is this a lineup you can kind of stretch with Jorge Polanco down lineup on the wrong side of splits? Where you chasing if you're going Mariners here?
Yeah, probably the obvious ones at the top. I am a little. Have you been tracking Jorge Polanco's season? Because I thought he was an MVP player the first month, and then it feels like the last month or so he's really kind of hit a skid. But
yeah, the numbers are coming down in that slash line pretty aggressively, especially in the front two spots. But it's covered up by like the power that he showed early with the premium contact still kind of looks like. So yeah, it's been a weird one over 148 plate appearances for sure. And it's been tough to figure out with how lost he's been like the last two seasons, but there was good power there previously. So I'm kind of torn on what I think of him still so far.
Yeah, if you still believe in him, he might be a fun guy to turn around late innings, because the Nationals, much like the Athletics, their bullpen is really, really attackable. And I know that's kind of a noisy statement because you never really know who's going to pitch. I do what I can to try and guess. But man, if he turns around and like today, looking at it could be Cole Henry, Jackson Rutledge, Andrew Chafin, who's a lefty. There's definitely some beatable arms that are due up, especially Jackson Rutledge. But I don't know. He pitched 2 days ago. This bullpen's attackable, so maybe he'd be a fun guy to put in the bottom half of the lineup, and your open Gore goes 6, and then he comes out. And if they're playing from a deficit, you still get 3 innings of opportunity from a guy like Polanco, who can touch a Rosarena in a weird stack. If a Rosarena gets on, then he can still bases. But it's not fun to target Gore. Man, yeah, I don't know if Polanco's one of those guys that should be batting lefty all the time, but maybe I'll have to look that up.
Be an interesting switch up. Yeah, I'm not sure what the numbers look like, but if you started doing it today, maybe you could take advantage of those reverse splits. That'll shock the hell out of the announcers. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this one? As a Cubs fan in the chat mentions, gentle reminder: the slate starts in 40 minutes, and we're even closer than that. So we do have to round things off here. Unfortunately,
man, I tell you, every stream, I think you get it, I get it. People are like, you need to do a stream with Terry. Do a Friday. I like, dude, if we did a Friday slate, we'd finish next Friday. Like, this is a 4-gamer. So I keep telling people, careful what you wish for. But yeah, no, I think this slate seems pretty straightforward pre-flop as far as pitching and what's obvious, what's not. I think the key to this slate for me right now is going to be taking chances on these unestablished 2K guys, and either people will be smart enough to look them up, but then don't trust their salary remaining in their lineups, or they don't look them up and they think it's scrubs, and that's why we're jamming Barrios at the top 4 ownership. So I'm going with the chalk pitching, but I'm going to try to get cute with these AAA ball players.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that approach. I like some of those, those A's bats with the obvious guys, but the down lineup guys too. Maybe some of those Rays lefties, and then some of these Nats that we've looked at here. So some attackable spots that are hopefully off the radar for some other people, and we'll see what comes through their sims. But I do think it's a day that's going to be very chalky, very top heavy as far as ownership goes. So maybe targeting some of that, like we talked about with some one-offs from either side of that Phillies Braves game, just maybe homer hunting a little bit. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, home run pick of the day. Who is it?
We did, by the way, just the Nats lineup, and it was exactly as I had projected. So I'm sure you have the same. Home run pick of the day. Schwarber's at the top of my model. That feels so cheap, but it is Chris Sale, so I feel like there's a little bit of risk there. As far as a name that would be different, like it's the obvious names. I got Schwarber, Olsen, Baldwin. Albies is up there. That's weird against Wheeler. Aranda, Rooker, Lau. I think Weston Wilson and Ozzie Albies are the two weirdest names in my top 10.
I like the Albies one, but I like the Wilson one. I think maybe a little bit more. I think that's even further off the radar, maybe. So I like that one. I had James Wood just up at the top of the board, pulling a monster power number. He's got 15 homers on the season, 282 ISO. Dude's a masher. As I've been raving about to people, they're probably sick of me saying it. This is James Wood stepping into his major league shoes. I mean, this is who this dude is. So I'm surprised it's come to this degree this quickly, but this is real in my opinion. So all over that spot. I love it against Emerson Hancock to round out the night. With that in mind, Gun, this was a blast, man. Everybody make sure you check out Gun's site, all his content. Follow him on Twitter at Gundacker. Like and subscribe here. Check out rotoscouts.com. Gun, any final thoughts?
No, it's been fun. I think as the rest of the sports world settle down, it'd be fun to kind of like maybe do a weekly collab or something like that. I think that people want
for sure.
I'm not going to name names, but I think the three best baseball minds right now all do solo pods, and it's fun to have somebody else to talk to.
Definitely. And that would be fun to even see if we could do a three-man weave.
I think he's available. Yeah.
I think a little reach out would be at least in bounds.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can make that happen. But yeah, I love the idea of doing this, kind of continually and maybe getting it on a regular day or something like that for everybody. So this was a blast. Let me punch out of here and get the website updated. Anybody looking for projections, I'll have it done in 2-3 minutes. Very quick to update that. That'll be up at rotoscouts.com. Thank everybody out there for all your likes, subscribing, and all those different things. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results with us on Twitter and Discord and wherever else you can get in touch when you do win. And we'll see you both. We'll see you out there for more on Friday. Later, gang.